Hello and welcome to the Election Corner on One Man Think Tank. Today we'll be going through a hypothetical presidential election where the United States has three parties. Last time we did it with a Republican, Democrat, and Progressive party. This time we're going to go the opposite direction and instead move the third party to the right. So this time you have the Republican, Democratic, and America First party. Now, this America First party will be made up of the most radical members of the Republican Party, as well as some current groups which wouldn't normally be seen in the political area, such as 9/11 truthers, fascisty types, and people who are proud to be in the Ku Klux Klan. Sorry, but you can't go much further than the Republicans are right now. In exchange, the Republican Party would moderate out slightly, losing some of their more, for lack of a better term, evangelical roots, possibly becoming rather, well, not pro-LGBTQ, no longer anti-LGBTQ either, losing some of that zealotry in exchange for, because they don't have the radical appeal of the America First Party. So, let's begin. And, unlike last time where I just did block colors, this time we'll actually do percent chances. So let's start off with the West Coast. Now, the West Coast will still remain very Democratic, with Washington and California solidly blue. However, Oregon would go tilt blue. Not tilt blue, will go likely blue, a little lighter than you would expect. This is because the state has a low population compared to Washington, who's in a similar setup, where you've got the mountains separating a highly liberal area and a highly conservative area, resulting in Oregon being a tad more skittish for the Democrats if the Republicans were to ever moderate. And that's what's happening here. Remove some of the social concerns and you start getting those urbanites around Eugene and Portland going, well, the Republicans have a sensible fiscal policy, and since they aren't openly anti-LGBTQ anymore, etc., aren't anti-LGBTQ at all, I can feel a bit more comfortable about voting for them. Hawaii remains solid blue. That's just something that's not going to change. However, Alaska, which can sometimes go lean Republican, is solid red. America First has sucked out some of the most key offenders of the very socially conservative segment, allowing the more libertarian minds in the party to take frontal, for lack of a better term, take point, which really helps in a state like Alaska. Now, here's where things are going to get a tad more interesting when we get to Nevada. Nevada is actually going to be tilt Republican, because when the Republicans moderate out on social issues, because right now the Democrats and Republicans aren't that different on economic issues. At the end of the day, the Republicans are more openly privatization, and I will say the Democrats are getting much closer to their original left-wing New Deal roots, but they're still not proposing government programs to solve most problems. The closest they've really come is universal pre-K, some college for all, and, of course, the public option for healthcare. So Nevada, like I said, a very libertarian-minded state, remove the social breakage, and Nevada actually swings very hard back to the Republicans. Soften up the immigration issues in the Republican Party, and Arizona is all of a sudden not looking super hot for the Democrats anymore. I still think they take it, however, it's a tilt for the Democratic Party. Fortunately, the Democrats do get some good news through New Mexico and Colorado, both of which remain very strong in their category. These two states have gone wildly left, and we'll get to why why the big divides happen in the wrap-up to this video, but frankly, Colorado and New Mexico are too left-wing to just be moderated into a questioning part for the Democrats. However, Republicans maintain all of their Great Plains states. None of them are at risk to be lost to the Republican Party. They even have a solid chance at Omaha. being the Democrats don't really have much to go off of. Kansas and Oklahoma are the similar way. Texas, still contentious, but is likely as opposed to the leans or even tilt in other scenarios. Going up and down the Mississippi, Minnesota remains strong for the Democratic Party. It's long since been a very liberal state, or left-wing state. Iowa, on the other hand, is solid red, and this is probably the first big shock for many people. Iowa is typically viewed as the purple state, but it is solid red in this scenario because most Iowans are economically conservative in the Democratic-Republican diode, but socially liberal. And you have now successfully moderated out the social issues, so they go Republican for the economics. Continuing down, Republican safe states continue to be held. The one change is Arkansas does go likely, and not likely because of the Democrats, but likely because of America First. Arkansas has a long and tragic history of being, let's say, a tad racist, and that would continue here. Mississippi would go red, solidly. Alabama, solidly red as well. Too many African-American voters in this state for a risk of an America First upset, but not enough that the Democrats have a chance of winning. Keeping in mind, this would be a ranked choice voting election, so there is no spoiler effect. Florida goes likely Republican, swinging, like I said, remove the social issues and you've got a very potent Republican Party. Georgia and North Carolina, two states which should theoretically be running very blue at this point in time for this upcoming presidential election, are now very much more in the Republican category. They continue to hold on to the rest of Appalachia as well. Virginia, a state many might expect to flip, only goes to leans, and this is just due to the nature of the Northern Virginia area, the Richmond area, and the Newport News area going more left-wing on many issues, as well as being very, for lack of a better term, subsidized by the federal government due to the amount of federal employees who work in Virginia. They aren't big fans of hearing their salaries could be cut in the guise of budget slashing. Continuing up through the Great Lakes area, Ohio and Indiana are safe for the Republican Party. Illinois stays blue. Chicago will dominate the power over this state until the earth melts. Wisconsin goes tilt Republican. Wisconsin has been getting more and more conservative over the years, and I haven't fully been able to figure out why, when its neighboring states have managed to stay very solid blue. Speaking of that, Michigan is only likely blue, but that's to be expected in any scenario. And this is enough to push it over the edge. I think there's a chance in this upcoming election, ignoring this third-party hypothetical, that Wisconsin will stay blue and could be getting bluer. However, right now all signs point to it getting redder. Remove the worst offenders who make people feel a bit, get a lump in their throat when they have to check the R box. Wisconsin suddenly looking very Republican. So is Pennsylvania. You start winning a lot of steel workers in the Pittsburgh area. If we actually had this scenario happening in real life and I could see some polling, I wouldn't even be shocked if Pennsylvania was heading towards the leans or even likely column. But for right now, I think it's tilt, because I have to go off of a very hypothetical party with relatively nebulous beliefs, in the case of America First. Fortunately for the Democrats, they do hang on to some states below the Mason-Dixon line, as well as D.C., but if you look, Maryland and Delaware are likely. This is because both states have a history of being very friendly towards Rockefeller Republicans, as they're called, or more moderate Republicans, your Bill Wheel types. And you know what? They run one of those there. The party has managed to ditch the more, for lack of a better term, Trumpian faction. That's a very good place to be if you're trying to run as a Republican in Maryland and Delaware, keeping in mind it's likely, so probably not going to flip, but you never know. Continuing up, the Democrats managed to hold on to quite a bit of New England and the New York area. This is just, these areas will remain very left-wing and liberal due to the nature of the governments that run them, etc., etc. However, New Hampshire, which has been going more and more blue, would be only tilt Democratic in a presidential election. If Sununu was somehow involved, a chance they could flip it, but no offense to any New Hampshireites, I don't think the big concern for Republicans is ever going to be, can we flip New Hampshire? And lastly, we finish off in Maine, where overall the state leans Democratic, the 1st district is likely Democratic, and the 2nd district is likely Republican. So the Republicans are left with a victory, with 285 electoral votes, while the Democrats are left with a mere 253. However, the key thing you might be noticing is America First got a fat goose egg. They didn't win anywhere. They had no chance of really winning any state except maybe Arkansas, and even that was a bit of a, well, maybe. But this shows you the power of a moderating influence, namely on social issues. If the Republicans moderated out, took back some of their harshest rhetoric on immigration, perhaps passing a deal like the First Step Act, but for immigration, and decided that to really just give up on their anti-LGBTQ rhetoric and moderate on their abortion rhetoric, as opposed to trying to propose the death penalty in some states for people who have abortion, instead just say they are, well, we'll stop it at viability and we're going to only let it under certain circumstances. Maybe adopt a model similar to certain European countries where abortion is legal but restricted. You could see a very big Republican resurgence. And the important thing to keep in mind, while electoral vote-wise they're close, 32 votes away from each other, the Democrats have an entrenched advantage in the sense of California isn't likely to flip in a scenario where the Republican Party moderates out. Once a state, because the Republicans, while they become more centrist in their on the social field, in the economic field, they'd still be the conservatives. So states which support government funding for programs, or support government-run initiatives, or public banking, and the lot, will still lean blue, or those who support what I will refer to as more progressive issues, such as being pro-transgender rights in the sense of removing restrictions on changing your birth certificate or changing your gender, etc., etc. And also expanding existing rights. I could see this Republican Party, while, let's say, in favor of something like automatic voter registration, would still be pro-voter ID. And in certain states, that could still be construed as being very conservative. The conservatives would still be conservative. But radicalism, when stretched out and poured into its most purest form, doesn't win. You need something normal with you in order to win. So if you put these America First guys back into the Republican Party, they can win more. It results in the Republicans losing states like Nevada, Arizona, Virginia, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, etc. But in exchange, the America First guys get more people elected. So, for example, a Tom Cotton could fall under the Arkansas idea of a America First guy. Or he could just be one of the most right-wing Republicans. But either way, Tom Cotton is going to end up getting elected a lot more in the Republican Party than he would be in the America First Party. With all that being said, if you liked the video, please leave a like down below and feel free to drop a comment. If you want to see more from this channel, click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be alerted when new content comes out. Otherwise, as always, have a wonderful day.